Trump campaign is now reaching voters online.
You are seeing the President of the United States. Look at the lines.
You joined our movement.
A lot of President Trump supporters here.
Greatest movement in the history of our country. The most racist thing a person could tell me is that I'm supposed to choose something based on my race.
You ain't black.
Joe Biden has never been a friend to African Americans.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of what we call
Truth Over Facts.
China lied to us. They destroyed test kits. They lied to their own people.
Since Ronald Reagan, we haven't had a president more engaged and more involved in the Western Hemisphere than this administration, and it's been a great partnership to work with him on.
Well, you've heard of The View, but welcome to The Right View.
And with us today is the Motor City madman, Ted Nugent, because this isn't your typical political show.
It's the most important election in our lifetime.
Joe Biden, who has a dismal record of economic failure and absolutely terrible ideas for the future.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online. What a beautiful history we wrote together. China's not our problem.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Team Trump Online's War Room Weekly, where we take a look at President Trump's great record of success on behalf of the American people and contrast that with the nonsense that comes out of the other side, Joe Biden, Democrats, and the mainstream news media. I'm Tim Murtaugh. I'm the communications director for the Trump 2020 campaign, and we are especially pleased to be joined today in the war room by the great Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Florida, Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Núñez. Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Tim. Always a pleasure.
Well, let's talk about what everyone has been dealing with in this country for the last 3 months or so, and that's the coronavirus crisis. And specifically, because you're with us today, let's talk about what's going on in Florida. How is it that you, as a state government in Florida, alongside Governor Ron DeSantis, one of the great governors in America, how have you approached the coronavirus? How have you protected your citizens, and what do things look like today in Florida?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to note that elections have consequences, and we're glad that we have Governor DeSantis at the helm here in Florida, because he's been able to manage this crisis, understanding the unique challenges that Florida faced. But he did it in a way that was methodical, it was diligent, it was grounded in the data and in public health experts. And we did so with a focus on, of course, social distancing, testing and tracing, protecting our elderly, ensuring that our healthcare systems and our healthcare workers were also protected, and ultimately wanting to make sure that we protected Floridians as best as possible.
And so you have done that. You have achieved actually great success in protecting your citizens, especially as compared to other states. And now Florida is also among the leaders, not only just in the health aspect of this, but among the leaders in getting the economy going again. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. A few weeks ago, the governor unveiled our safe, smart, step-by-step reopening plan, and that plan really was focused on getting Floridians back to work. As you can imagine, Florida has been, as I said at the onset, uniquely challenged, both from a public health perspective, but also from an economic perspective. So under Governor DeSantis's plan, we opened back up the economy in a safe way and in a gradual way, and we're going to continue to make those steps. But if you look at the data, we haven't seen what was predicted to be a second wave. We haven't seen what was predicted by the media to be a disaster disaster here in Florida. Quite the contrary. Governor DeSantis has been leading. He's been reopening the economy, getting Floridians back to work, and we're confident that we'll be able to get Florida back on the path to prosperity that we were on. And we have a lot of really exciting opportunities coming our way, and we're eager to continue to work with President Trump to make sure Florida and the rest of the country recovers, not just survives, but thrives.
That's exactly right. President Trump and Governor DeSantis and your work as Lieutenant Governor really showing optimism in the way that states can come out of this and get the economy back on track again and right where it was before the coronavirus artificially interrupted things. At this time, I'd like to ask our viewers to remind them that if you'd like to comment or click the thumbs up button while watching this video, please go ahead all throughout the course of this video. We'd like that very much. You mentioned the media and how the media predicted doom and gloom in Florida. That is not the way that they approached things in other states, and I would say most notably in New York with Governor Cuomo in New York. Let's take a look at sort of a media highlight reel here about the difference, the very real and clear difference about how they treated Florida versus how they treated New York. This was put together by the Washington Free Beacon, but it is very illustrative.
I mean, Andrew Cuomo has been glorified by media despite policies with respect to nursing homes that caused to a number of tragic deaths, whereas Ron DeSantis has instituted pretty successful policy if you look at their numbers. So what's going on here?
Ron DeSantis is not doing what he needed to do 2 weeks ago to protect Florida's seniors.
It's been a remarkable show of leadership by Governor Cuomo in recent days. He's providing hope.
And Governor Ron DeSantis is finally, maybe too little too late, issuing a stay-at-home order.
Cuomo has become a kind of acting president.
Governor DeSantis should have absolutely acted a lot quicker, not only for the retired people.
Cuomo, everything Trump isn't, honest, direct, brave.
In the case of Governor DeSantis of Florida, he's going exactly the opposite way from what the experts, the people on the front lines, indicate ought to be done.
Governor Cuomo has become a national leader and not just the leader of New York. No stay-at-home order from Governor Ron DeSantis. Why bother, right? I'm sure Florida will be fine.
He is conveying incredible strength in the face of this pandemic.
Act like you give a damn.
I've seen you referred to a little bit recently as the love gov, and I'm wondering if that's bleeding into your demeanor at all.
So there at that last clip there, the hard news in action there at CNN with the Cuomo brothers interviewing each other. That was probably right after they had talked about who their mother likes best, either big brother or little brother. Real hard-hitting news. But we see there the difference between the way the news media treats Governor DeSantis and your efforts in Florida, Lieutenant Governor, versus how they treated Andrew Cuomo in New York. It boils down to, it is so obvious that it's a matter of what letter comes after your name. Well, if you're an R, you're a bad guy. If you're a D, you're a hero. And I think let's not lose sight of the fact that you, as Lieutenant Governor of Florida, and also Governor Ron DeSantis, have been supporters and allies of President Trump. And in the media's eyes, once you've done that, you're always going to be a bad guy. Isn't it just as simple as that?
Absolutely. And that clip that you showed, it really is sickening. You know, we're used to the liberal media being a wholly owned subsidiary of the DNC, but they don't get to report things that are inaccurate. They don't get to, when it's convenient to them, don't get to quote unquote claim that science is important unless it doesn't tell their story. So I think the numbers really are the ones that are showing the truth about the situation, how Governor DeSantis made great decisions that protected Floridians, saved lives, whereas Governor Cuomo, who has been hailed as a hero of this pandemic, really, if you look at the disaster that occurred under his leadership, it cost New Yorkers their lives, their livelihood. And I think that when the dust has settled, there'll be no other way to explain this pandemic, and basically showing that Governor DeSantis made the right decisions, Governor Cuomo not so much.
Yeah, and you can see that the Democrats are actually panicked by this. They see the success that's happening in Florida and other states that are led by solid Republican governors. And as the president has said, it's time to get the economy back open again. He's followed the science all the way through. And what Democrats are worried about, there was a big Politico story this week. Democrats are scared to death that the economy is going to turn around. They're actually fearful of Americans benefiting from the economy rebounding. And so once again, we see for Democrats, bad news for America is good news for Democrats. What a sad, pathetic position to be in. And really is something that used to be that as Americans, we would, root for America. But that's really not the position that Joe Biden and the Democrats find themselves in. And neither is the media in that position, as a matter of fact. Let's take a look at another clip here. This is, again, Governor DeSantis in the wake of a story where you had a health worker in Florida who claimed that she was removed from her job because she refused to alter or misuse data. And of course, that turned out not to be true, as we know now. And once again, the media ran with a false story because it was damaging to a Republican governor, an ally of the president's, and it turned out at the end to be false. Let's take a look at Governor DeSantis.
Our data is available. Our data is transparent. In fact, Dr. Birx has talked multiple times about how Florida has the absolute best data. So any insinuation otherwise is just typical partisan narrative trying to be spun. And part of the reason is that because you got a lot of people in your profession who waxed poetically for weeks and weeks about how Florida was going to be just like New York. Wait 2 weeks, Florida's going to be next. Just like Italy, wait 2 weeks. Well, hell, we're 8 weeks away from that, and it hasn't happened. Not only do we have a lower death rate, well, we have way lower deaths generally. We have a lower death rate than the Acela Corridor, D.C., everyone up there. We have a lower death rate than the Midwest, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. But even in our region, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida has the lower death rate. And I was the #1 landing spot from tens of thousands of people leaving the #1 hot zone in the world to come to my state. So we've succeeded, and I think that people just don't want to recognize it because it challenges their narrative, it challenges their assumption, so they got to try to find a boogeyman. Maybe it's that there are black helicopters circling the Department of Health. If you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you.
So for the media salivating over a negative story they thought they had about a Republican administration in a state that supports the president won it last time. But really the truth is, and the story that the media really couldn't bear to tell, is Florida's great success, right?
Indeed. You're absolutely correct.
So moving on, the reopening of the state of Florida has been key. President Trump has been working on two main objectives this entire time. One is protecting the health and safety of the American people, and the other is safeguarding the economy. We know that the American economy just was not built to lie dormant for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year at a time. Some people are even talking about 18 months, keeping things. If you have a long-term economic downturn, that comes with its own health problems on top of what the coronavirus would bring. And so following the science, opening up, let's hammer this home a little bit more, because the president has been insistent on trying to get the economy back going again, and Florida has been a leader in that. What has been the approach?
Well, as I said, Governor DeSantis unveiled his Safe, Smart, Step-by-Step plan. It's a plan that will bring our businesses back online, will get Floridians back to work, following the guidance that the White House issued, working very closely with President Trump, with Vice President Pence, with Dr. Birx, all of the experts. What we see and what we continue to monitor very closely as we unveil our plan, as we continue to open, we bring businesses online, we've increased the capacity with which businesses can operate, really allowing, again, Floridians to get back to work, business owners to open up their doors. What we see is all of the data, everything is stable. The rate of positive cases is stable. What we see is a continuation of counties to be able to open up. We do not see additional people being hospitalized. We do not see additional people on ventilators. In fact, we have fewer people in ICU and on ventilators every day. We look at that data. So all of that information, again, grounded and rooted in science, in the key public health measures that we understand are what are going to give us the foundation for decision making. And so Governor DeSantis is eager to get to phase 2. I would suspect in the next couple of days, we'll hear more about what the next steps are. far. But our goal is really to get Florida back to work, making sure that Florida recognizes that President Trump has been a tremendous leader during this pandemic, and he's the only person that can pull this country back onto that path to prosperity.
Yeah, that's clear. The American economy had reached unprecedented heights under President Trump's leadership and under his policies, and there's no question that it was artificially interrupted by the coronavirus. And he built the economy up to those unprecedented heights once, and he is clearly the candidate who would do that again. And he's been safeguarding the economy with policies, very strong policies to protect workers, including the Paycheck Protection Program, which is something that he has been championing, and it's been very successful, run out of the Small Business Administration. And there are lots and lots and lots of businesses all over Florida who have benefited from that. And that means workers won't miss paychecks, even if those businesses weren't open and taking customers for a period of time. People weren't missing paychecks through that program. And here is some local TV coverage from Florida about one particular business. This is just but one of many, many good stories that we've heard through the Paycheck Protection Program under the Trump administration.
We told you about a Sanford restaurant that had to lay off dozens of workers because of the pandemic. Well, now, thanks to the Paycheck Protection Program, Hollerback's Willow Tree Cafe, downtown Sanford, is now able to hire back some of those workers. Here's Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie.
In March, the owner of Hollerback's Willow Tree Cafe in Sanford,
this is the dining room, which is a little bit empty right now,
had to let go of half of his staff, about 50 employees.
We were crying.
Business took a major hit. Theo Hollerback worrying that his restaurant wouldn't survive past May and more people would be put out of work. Now fast forward 6 weeks later, tables can once again be filled, and Hollerback finally heard back from the government on their application for the Payment Protection Program.
Because I was running out of cash flow, so with this $300,000 loan, again, just on payroll, and that's all it's designed to pay. So at $45-50K a week, that gives us another 6 weeks at least. So now we're good until July.
With that money, he has been able to rehire 20 employees, like Nicholas Crisitelli, who was furloughed for 30 days.
And then all of a sudden losing my job, and then thinking to myself, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Got to file for unemployment, got to do the regular things that everyone does.
Skin apples for the strudel.
Crisitelli works as a baker decorating cakes and pastries. He's only back part-time for now, but is hoping business will pick up when people once again hear the sound of live folk music.
I'm thrilled to be back.
Getting back into the swing of things while focusing on staying healthy and keeping some distance. In Sanford, Amanda McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
There you see President Trump's policies in action, helping people get going again, helping businesses keep workers on the payroll. And we also have seen that Joe Biden is against reopening the economy. And we see lots of Democrat governors across the country dragging their feet on reopening the economy without even bothering to look at Florida and how Florida can be a real model for how you can do that. I think, politically speaking, the president has speculated that it is in the interests of Democrats to continue to inflict as much harm on the economy as possible because it will benefit them, in their view, come election time. So tell me what the truth is exactly, because you in Florida, Lieutenant Governor Núñez, and with Governor DeSantis, you've actually been an active partner with President Trump in Washington and using such programs like the Paycheck Protection Program. How's the partnership actually been, contrary to what Joe Biden, the Democrats, and the media would have you to have to say?
Well, first of all, let's really focus on what President Trump has done, not just for Florida, but for the entirety of our country. He has worked with governors across this country. He has provided them with much needed relief, both financial as well as important public health needs that they have, such as PPE. And so what we've seen here in Florida specifically is President Trump has been phenomenal, working with our governor, working with our state to make sure that our healthcare workers had the equipment that they desperately needed, making sure that we had field hospitals set up in the event that we had a surge, which, by the way, based on Governor DeSantis's decisions, we never even approached anything near what the media was purporting in terms of hospitalizations. So there really was not a request that Florida had had, which saved obviously tremendous lives. It saved lives and it saved opportunities for our healthcare workers to be protected. And so Governor DeSantis working with President Trump, really that partnership has been a benefit and a blessing to Florida.
Yeah, it's a really good news story that, frankly, we wish the news media would cover. But let's talk about the upcoming election, and we now know that Joe Biden is going to be President Trump's opponent, and there's a lot of things that people talk about when it comes to these two men squaring off, and one of them that we like to highlight is the enthusiasm gap between the people who support President Trump and those who support Joe Biden. We like to say that President Trump's supporters would run through a brick wall to vote for Donald Trump, but ain't nobody running through a brick wall for Joe Biden. And I think we see an example of that enthusiasm on display all across Florida, up and down the coast of Florida, the Atlantic coast and the Gulf Coast, all over the place, with these spontaneous, impromptu Trump vote parades. Let's take a look at some coverage of this, and I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Here's some tape.
Speaking of travel, it was a busy day on the water. 500 boats sailed from the Cape Coral Midpoint Bridge today. You're looking at visuals from a boat parade that actually honored the Trump 2020 campaign, and it was also to support veterans during this Memorial Day weekend. Now, these boats rode from Cape Coral all the way to the Sanibel Lighthouse.
It's Memorial Day. All the ones that have lost their lives and put it on the line for me, you know? So it's just, I feel like I'm privileged.
There was a similar boat parade at the same time in Collier County. Boats started at the Naples City Dock and went to the Jolly Bridge on Marco Island. That parade was in support of President Trump as well.
Take a look at this. President Trump is tweeting his appreciation for a parade in his honor early today. A few dozen boats participated just days after boat ramps were reopened in Palm Beach County. The parade took place near his Mar-a-Lago resort on Palm Beach. Supporters waved Trump flags and signs praising the president. Trump taking to Twitter to thank his supporters. He says he promises to, quote, never let you down.
This is amazing.
Those are just some incredible images, especially that last shot, all those boats out there and all those boaters and Florida voters, voters, I guess you could call them, and the enthusiasm they're showing for President Trump. And I guess we must have missed all of the Joe Biden boat parades. And although, hold on. No, now I'm being told that we didn't miss them. There just weren't any. So seeing all that stuff, is there any doubt in your mind that President Trump is going to carry Florida again this November?
Absolutely not. If you saw all of the enthusiasm in those boat parades, everywhere from the Florida Keys to our Emerald Coast, you would know that not only is he going to carry Florida, he's going to carry it big. And I tell you, Floridians are desperate for the kind of leadership that President Trump has provided these past several years, but really looking forward in the context of this pandemic. They're looking forward to, again, being able to not just survive, but thrive. Go back to the path to prosperity that we were on, making sure that they can have their businesses open and unfettered, making sure our economy is humming again. And so I'll tell you, in particular, for Floridians here, we value liberty, we value freedom. And as chair of the Hispanics for Trump, Latinos for Trump, that is something that I'm very proud of. And I will tell you something, for Hispanics from every corner of this hemisphere, they recognize that President Trump is not only willing to stand up and fight for freedom and democracy, but he is also willing to stand up to despots and dictators, because he said it time and again. And nothing rings truer than when he says that America will never be a socialist country. And I can tell you, I haven't heard that from Basement Biden at all. So we are very proud to support President Trump, and I think that we're going to be celebrating very soon.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an excellent point talking about despots and dictators. And we heard Joe Biden just a couple of weeks ago tell a Miami TV station that he would return to the Obama policy of appeasing Cuba, which of course props up the dictatorship there. And it also makes it easier for Cuba to assist in propping up Maduro in Venezuela. So very, very important key differences between President Trump and his strong stance for freedom and against socialist dictators versus Joe Biden, who would just sort of let them go about their business and actually make life easier on them by re-engaging with them and filling their coffers and their government and making them stronger. So that I'm afraid is where we will have to leave it. Florida Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Núñez, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Tim.
And thanks to our viewers for joining us for another episode here. And we want to remind folks to please download the Trump 2020 app. It's available in the App Store right now. It allows you to get the true, straight facts from the campaign and not have to go through the fake news media filter. It also lets you volunteer and get involved in the campaign. You can do all sorts of things up to and including making phone calls from the comfort of your own home, calling other voters and telling them the good news about the Trump administration. And by doing all of that, you can actually earn points and trade those points in for great prizes up to and including a picture of yourself with President Trump. And with that, I am Tim Murtaugh with the Trump campaign. We thank you for watching and we hope you join us here next week.